This is the scary story about Christmas morning. It was Christmas Eve, and a girl named Jessica was in bed. She couldn't fall asleep because she was so excited for Christmas. As she laid in her bed, she heard a noise downstairs. Thinking it might be Santa, Jessica tiptoed out of bed and went downstairs. When she got downstairs, she saw Santa, or so she thought. Jessica said, "Santa, is that you?" But when Santa turned around, Jessica noticed that it was just a random guy dressed as Santa. But before she had time to do anything, the man jumped on Jessica. The next morning, Jessica's parents woke up and went downstairs. They then went into the living room and froze in horror at what they saw. They saw Jessica's severed head on the top of the tree, and her headless body was on the floor, wrapped in wrapping paper, with a note next to it that said, "We had a lot of fun last night. I'll be back next year." This is a creepy story about the strange news. One late night, a girl got home from work, and she sat down in front of the TV. She was so tired she immediately fell asleep. She then woke up around 2:30 a.m. The TV was still on, but on the screen was a test pattern with a very annoying high-pitched sound. She was about to go back to bed when something strange happened. The screen suddenly filled with static. Through the static, she could make out an image. It became clearer and clearer. She then realized it was news footage of a train crash. It said NNN news broadcast in the top left of the screen. She never seen that before and got very confused. A long list of names scrolled down the screen with creepy background music and a deep voice reading the names one by one. She then heard her name being read out and a chill ran down her spine. Then the voice said, "These are tomorrow's victims, good night." She then called off work the next day. That morning, the train she always takes to work crashed that morning and everybody aboard died. Ever since then, she's been too scared to leave her house or watch TV. This is a scary story about the woman in the night. A young man moved into an apartment building. The first night he slept in his new apartment, he was woke up by somebody knocking on the door at 1 o'clock in the morning. He got up and opened the door, and standing there was a young woman. She apologized for waking him up and told him that she was his neighbor. She said her husband was beating her and asked if she could spend the night on the sofa. The man felt bad and let her stay the night even though it seemed strange. The next morning, he checked the living room and discovered that the woman was already gone. He assumed that her husband and her made up. But that night, at the same time as before, the same girl was knocking on the door. The man opened it and she said her husband had beaten her up again and wondered if she could spend the night on the sofa again. He said yes, and the next morning when he got up, the woman was gone again. The man grew suspicious and asked his landlord about the strange neighbor. The landlord's face grew pale and said nobody lives in that apartment. He said a woman who lived there died 1 year ago after being beaten to death by her husband. This is the creepy story about the cave. A young man had been sent to inspect the forest in a remote mountain region. He was staying at an inn that was owned by a husband and wife. The wife was a beautiful girl with nice eyes and hair, and the husband was a fat man who never spoke. As the weeks went by, a strange mutual attraction grew between the young man and the husband's wife. The husband spent the nights drinking himself to sleep, leaving the young man and the wife alone. One day, the husband was called to visit his sick mother. Finding himself alone with the husband's wife again, the young man suggested they go for a walk. The wife agreed happily. When they were walking, they came upon a cave. They both looked at each other and went inside the cave. They embraced each other and started to kiss. When suddenly it got pitch dark in the cave, and somebody blocked the entrance with something massive. They were trapped inside. Outside, they heard footsteps and the evil laughter of the husband. The husband then yelled, "Now you guys can be together forever, ever, and ever." He then walked away from the cave, leaving them to die. The young man and the husband's wife was never seen again. This is the creepy story about the red crayon. There was a married couple who just bought a new house. They got it for a cheap price and it was in a very nice neighborhood. They couldn't be happier. One day the husband was walking down the hallway when he spotted a red crayon lying on the floor. The couple did not have children, so the husband wondered where this crayon came from. But he shrugged it off and threw it in the trash. The next day the husband came home from work and saw another red crayon lying in the same exact spot. He was very confused, so he asked his wife about it. The wife then grew pale in the face and said that every day since they moved in here, she found red crayons in the same spot every single day. The husband grew suspicious and started knocking on the walls, and he then heard a hollow sound and began ripping back the wallpaper. Behind the wallpaper, he found a sliding door. The door was nailed shut. He then got a hammer and began prying out the nails. When he opened the door, he was shocked to see a dead little girl in the corner with "Mommy, I'm sorry, let me out," written over and over again on the wall with red crayon. This is the creepy story about the white string. There was a girl who desperately wanted to get her ears pierced. Her parents said she was too young, but she begged them. And eventually they gave her some money to go to the local mall and get her ears pierced. Instead, the girl decided to keep the money and do the piercing herself. So she got her friend to help her out. It was very painful, but in the end, the girl was very happy to finally be able to wear earrings. However, a few days later, the girl was in school when she began to feel a pain in her left ear. She then went to the bathroom and looked in the mirror. Her earlobe was red and it was super inflamed. When she looked closely, she saw what looked like the end of a white string sticking out the hole in her earlobe. Thinking this was very strange, she got a pair of scissors and cut the string. Suddenly, everything went black and she couldn't see a thing. The girl was then rushed to the hospital, and after she told the doctor what happened, he was shocked. "I'm sorry, but you will be blind for the rest of your life," he said. "That wasn't a white string. That was your optic nerve." This is the scary story about the football. One night, a teacher was staying late at school. It was 8 o'clock and it was time to close the school. The teacher then packed his bag and left. He was about to lock the gate when he saw dark figures in the distance on the football field. It looked like a group of boys kicking a ball back and forth. "Hey, what are you doing over there?" shouted the teacher. "Come on, it's time to go home. I have to lock up." The boys continued to play, and they paid no attention to the teacher. "Don't pretend you can't hear me," shouted the teacher angrily. "The school is closed. Go out the gate." Just then, one of the figures kicked the football high into the air. It landed on the grass and came rolling over to the teacher. When it stopped at his feet, he looked down and the blood suddenly drained from his face. He was overcome with fear. It wasn't a football. It was a young boy's severed head with a terrified look on his face. This is a scary story about the calls. There was a girl who was getting a bunch of harassing phone calls. Every day when she answered the phone, she would hear silence or heavy breathing on the other end. The calls came at all hours of the day, both day and night. One night she was woken up by her phone ringing. She picked it up and said, "Hello, who is this?" But there was no answer. The woman was so frustrated, she started screaming in the phone saying, "You complete loser, what is wrong with you? You're a stalker and a creep." But when she finally calmed down and stopped yelling, there was a long silence, but then she heard an angry voice say, "I'll kill you." The woman became frightened, and the next day she called the police, but they couldn't do anything. That night the woman received another phone call, but this time it was different. When she answered the phone, all she heard was a creepy laughter. The woman then hung up and slammed the phone in anger, but the creepy laughter continued. A chill then ran down her spine. She then turned around and saw the man standing right behind her. This is a scary story about the mistake. A girl named Kelly was on a business trip for 3 days. She was so excited to see her kid and her husband. But when she got home, the only one that was waiting for her was her kid. Kelly then said, "Where's Daddy?" And the kid said, "Upstairs with the girl." Kelly immediately got a pit in her stomach. She walked up the stairs slowly and opened their bedroom door. Her husband was in there with another woman. Kelly started to scream and cry, and her husband tried to explain himself, but she wasn't listening at all. In a pit of rage, Kelly went downstairs and grabbed a knife from the kitchen. She then went back into the room and stabbed her husband countless times. The other woman in the room was shocked and lost for words. Kelly then pointed the knife at her and said, "You're next." But then the woman said, "Wait, he wasn't cheating on you. He thought you weren't going to be home till tomorrow? I'm a party planner, and he hired me to set up a party for you." She then showed Kelly the idea her husband had. Kelly then dropped the knife, and she couldn't believe what she just did. She then went downstairs, grabbed her kid, and left. Nobody saw Kelly or her kid again.